In this video, we're going to take a look at primary market research, one of our two different types of market research that we might get quizzed about on our A-level business exams. So primary market research is where organisations collect information themselves firsthand, sometimes called field research, because the business is going out there into the field and collecting information itself, setting its own parameters, going out and deciding what it wants to find out, and conducting research to gather that information. Now, there's different ways that the organisation can try and collect primary market research. The first of which is surveys, which itself is a little bit of an umbrella term, and there's different ways that organisations can try and survey the opinions of their customers. A popular one is to conduct personal interviews. This is where the organisation is trying to make face-to-face contact with its target markets, with its sample of market research. And it might involve perhaps stopping people in public places, asking them to complete questionnaires. And it's a good method of market research because it allows whoever's conducting the interview to perhaps follow up on points of interest and ask follow-up questions to get the participant to elaborate maybe on some of their responses, which is a strength that some of the other methods of primary research really don't have. We might also complete surveys electronically, so businesses might complete them through their own websites or maybe through third parties' websites. A popular way of conducting surveys now is through SMS text messages. So organisations might text one question at a time through to potential respondents, and then they will text back their answers. And another popular method of carrying out surveys is, of course, also to use it via telephone, although consumers can sometimes see that as a little bit of an intrusive method of being researched. Perhaps a slightly more in-depth method of primary market research is to host or conduct what are called focus groups. And a focus group is where you get a small selection of your target market to meet up, perhaps periodically, and you might get the same group of people to meet up on a monthly or a quarterly basis. And what you'll do is you'll get those customers to sit down and give you some kind of in-depth feedback on different aspects of your market. Could even be getting them to appraise certain aspects of your own marketing, like getting the focus group to discuss, your products and what they like and dislike about it, maybe discuss other aspects of the marketing mix, such as its price, what they think of different promotions that the businesses had used. And by potentially getting the same people to meet periodically, you'll find how their opinions might change or evolve over time, or if in your focus group they only meet on a one-off basis, it does at least allow you to get some rather in-depth information, albeit from a very small sample group, of how they view and perceive your product. Really interesting method of primary market research is to use test marketing. Now, launching new products can be a very costly and quite a risky process. So a very popular strategy for businesses to use is to try and launch it on a smaller section of the market first, perhaps just a smaller geographical region, like launching a product just in one town or one city. Now, if you can find a region that is broadly representative in terms of its gender makeup, its age makeup, its socio-economic makeup, if that test market is broadly representative of your market as a whole, you can launch your product in just that area, analyze how it's received by that area, test it out on just that market, and using that research, the business will be able to decide whether this is a product that looks like it could be successful if we bear the expense of launching it on a broader scale, or whether perhaps this is a product that's not worked so well on the test market, so we either need to tweak it and refine it before we roll it out on a larger scale, or maybe we don't even launch it at all. Final thing we can talk about to do with primary market research is the method of observation, which is literally just using surveillance on random customers in order not necessarily to find out their opinions, because we might just be watching them through sort of security cameras, as subversive as that might sound, but instead we get to find out more about their behaviours, about how they shop, which is an important thing for firms to research. So this could be something that may be used by retailers, possibly supermarkets, where they will use their closed circuit television to observe every 50th, every 100th customer that enters on a certain day, and they will observe their behaviour as they move around the store, looking at which aisles they spend the most time in, looking at whether they take notice of certain promotions, looking at what order they move around the store in, look at how they might behave as they're in certain aisles. Are they more prone to pick up products at eye height? Are they less prone to bend down and pick items up? It's a really in-depth method here where you can learn about behaviour of consumers. Strange enough, it's one that's actually used by lots of theme parks and tourist attractions. Sometimes they issue wristbands to visitors as they come with little electronic tags in there so that the organisation can see how they move around the park during the day, how long they'll spend queuing for certain rides. They can track where they might eat during the day. They can see how many times they go on a certain ride, and it just helps them assess the behaviour of their consumers so they can use that in their research and planning processes. So there's our 4 different types of primary market research. We look at primary market research holistically. There are some obvious benefits to conducting primary market research yourself. The first of which is that it can be very tailored, it can be very specific. So the organisation can set the exact parameters or research objectives that it wants to find out about. So the business is in charge of determining what it wants to know about the market and the consumers in that market, and it can go away and find out the exact answers to those specific questions that it is interested in finding solutions to. So it really does allow the business to really focus in on what it figures out to be important aspects of marketing a product and find specific information to answer those queries. Of course, the other benefit of it is that the information is up to date, and many markets are quite dynamic. They move very, very fast. And if you're relying on looking at information that could even be 12, 24 months out of date, the market could have moved on by then. Tastes and fashions could have changed. So the fact that primary market research is very current when you first collect it is another great reason firms use it. There are a couple of not downsides, but things to be aware of if we're selecting to use market research that is primary in its source. The first, of course, is the cost. So primary market research does have expenses attached to it. We might need to recruit specific employees who work on market research for the organisation, perhaps going out there and collecting primary market research for us, or perhaps we need people who are analysing the information that we collect, and that's their job. There's a cost attached to it. It's expensive. If we are outsourcing market research to a third party, we might be hiring organisations that are going to go out there and collect our primary market research for us. And again, there can be an expense attached to hiring in experts to help oversee the primary market research that you conduct. The other thing just to be aware of is the time involved in collecting primary market research. So it could be a matter of weeks and possibly months that's involved in terms of the collecting of the information and waiting for responses to come in from people in your target market and your sample groups. But then you've also got the time attached to then doing something with the results and analysing the information and collecting it in. So there we go, we've got our 4 different methods of primary market research there. We've got some certain pros and cons that are attached to each of it. Hopefully we can remember all of those when we go into our exam answers. We're going to put a link down below in the description there to our tutorial on secondary market research. Probably a good idea to watch both of those back to back, so then we can contrast the strengths and limitations of one and the strengths and limitations of the other. But for the moment, that'll do us. Good luck with the rest of your ongoing revision. We'll see you soon.